Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me to my side, my colleague, my cohort, my partner in crime, as mostly per usual, joining us from halfway across the world. So we apologize for any little technical difficulties we may have here, as we usually do apologize, but we give the people what they want. And one, Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, Brian?
Achtung, nein, sing. I actually can't speak German, but whatever. How you doing, man?
They speak German over where you are? Is that the...
I'm in Austria right now.
So. Oh, is that what that's supposed to be? Seeing your background there.
It was just... thought it would look better than my hotel room.
Well, we're going to see how this ends up working out. Today we have an interesting topic of sorts on deck, and that is which Steelers are on the hot seat for the 2022 season. And you know what? I'm going to just put this right out there right now. We're not going to be talking about Henry Mondo. Or if we do, it'll be a really, really brief. We're going to get to the real nitty gritty here. And of course, you'll see who I'm talking about in particular, probably one of the ones on the hottest seat wearing the number 55 Devin Bush jersey here. But we'll jump into the quarterback room real quick because I think anyone, Brian.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, anyone not named Kenny Pickett is more than likely on the hot seat heading into this upcoming season. And that includes some names, not only just Mason Rudolph, as you love to throw out there so eloquently all the time, but also Mitchell Trubisky, although he'll probably still be on the roster. As I maintain, Rudolph will probably be on the roster for this upcoming season. But I do believe in my full heart of hearts, the Steelers don't go first round with a quarterback unless they plan on hitching the saddles to that guy. So what do you think about the quarterback room? Mitch Trubisky a little bit on the hot seat as well as Mason Rudolph?
I mean, I don't think Mitch Trubisky is on the hot seat as we speak right now. If he stinks, yeah, he'll be on the hot seat fast. I can't imagine that they actually think Mitch Trubisky is a long-term solution. So I don't think they're going to view it as, here's the guy going to carry us for the next 3 years. I mean, they draft a quarterback. They don't think that. Mitch is a guy that they brought in to bridge the gap. He's a bridge quarterback, and that's, I believe, the way they're going to look at him. So do I think not right now, but a couple key interceptions, couple 100-yard passing games, he may be on the hot seat real quick.
Yeah. The way I look at it is the contracts that come through. And Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph basically being paid the same amount of money. Mitch Trubisky was already a backup last season. And everything got screwed up with the COVID, with the salary cap and everything like that. But I look at this as this could be dude's last real chance to be an NFL starter this year. So that's why I'm saying he's on the hot seat, because if he doesn't win this job or he doesn't perform the highest expectations, and I guess Josh Roundtree and some other folks, Andrew Filipponi, put it out and said, well, you know what? This season could start with Kenny Pickett as QB3. And it's like, oh, big shocked face, because that's exactly what we were thinking the entire time. And then everybody just thinks that, this guy, Mason Rudolph's just going to be instantly off the roster. Obviously, the hot seat's been hot. It was going to be hot as soon as Ben Roethlisberger left town. So it's going to be hot for all of these quarterbacks, but probably less so for the guy that's brand new. We don't know how Mike Tomlin is going to handle this situation, because Mike Tomlin has never been in this type of situation. Like, let's say Bill Belichick last year, where he had Cam Newton and Mac Jones, his first round rookie draft pick, heading into that season. So that's the reason why I feel with Mitchell Trubisky being the veteran quarterback. And if they're saying, well, we're going to sit, we're going to delay, we're going to wait until Kenny Pickett is part of this equation, maybe even until next season. Maybe they give him a complete red shirt year with the NFL. then if Mitch Trubisky flops at some point here, he could be cooked. He could be done for as far as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, obviously, being the top guy of his class and the second overall pick, he'll probably bounce around for years, like Rex Grossman or even like Colt McCoy, who didn't have that same type of pedigree coming out of the draft. But as far as being an NFL starting quarterback, this might be the last hacienda here for Mitchell Trubisky.
Oh yeah, I think it probably is. That's I think a given. You know, and even if he performs well, unless he performs above and beyond that, I think his last gasp at a starting role. I do believe that when he was drafted, there was some commentary by, maybe a couple of follically challenged individuals who career backup, but I could be misremembered.
Hey, watch what you're saying about follically challenged there. You may have one of those in the.
I'm including both of us.
Well, you've got stuff on the top of your head, though. I don't have anything that's right there. That's not fair. And then, of course,
That's true. I'm not challenged. I'm just follically conflicted because I identify as a football. What the hell I'm talking about?
No, I don't know that any of us do, to be honest. But of course, I have to bring it up all the time. That's the reason why I have this hat on, man. I gotta be able to roll.
I know.
And protect. Well, during the summer, the hat is the big deal for me all the time too. I gotta protect my noggin. I burned 2 weeks, and I just got back from Florida. I had a bucket hat that has the UPF, the sun protection, built into it. That sucker was probably the best investment that I've had for a long time. So, aside from the quarterbacks,
well, check our complexions against each other right now. Notice the redness in my face versus the paleness in yours, and 92 degrees here in Vienna, and I walked around for 3 hours in the sun.
Yeah.
I did wear a hat, and yes, Steelers hat.
I know. I actually was kind of surprised. I thought I was going to see a photo of you floating around, holding a terrible towel in front of some big kind of historical marker or monument or something like that. But it doesn't seem that
I should have taken it to the at the Three Devils at. Should have taken it there.
So, Brian, as I'm looking over here, and everybody who could maybe see you cutting in and out of space here from halfway across the world, I know you're not an adult beverage drinker. What in the heck is it that you're drinking there that required a bottle opener?
In Europe, sparkling water comes in glass bottles with a bottle cap.
Ah, I could dig that, man. I like it. You know what? I'm a big fan of, I don't know why, in order to get a solid Coca-Cola, now it seems like you have to get them from Mexico. And you have to get those are the ones that come in the glass bottles, the same thing. You need like the actual bottle opener in order to retrieve the contents of that. So anyways, let's move on. Running back position. And I'm thinking, with this cranium
Mr. Football?
of mine. Oh, yes, Mr. Football. Well, I don't know. Is that really Benny Snell, as we should say?
Benny Snell Football.
Benny Snell Football. Does Benny Snell Football actually kind of lend itself to being on the hot seat? I
no,
get
because you have to have been on a seat. If you never were on the seat can't get hot.
That's exactly what I've been trying to maintain here too. And just because he's in the last year of his contract, I don't know that necessarily the seat is very warm. They didn't draft any other running backs. They could pick someone else up. But I don't think he's the first guy off the roster. It just means he wouldn't get re-signed next year. And that's what I'm going to say about some of the wide receivers as well when we get over into their category. But I kind of a firm believer here that, who cares? Like with the Benny Snell thing, it's not really a hot seat. If they signed someone else, then maybe it could have been cut. That hasn't happened. You got 2 undrafted guys. You got Anthony McFarland, which probably means that he's not really on the hot seat either. So... No. I don't know. Is there anything else to really cover as far as
maybe we should have just defined what hot seat means?
Well, I tried to. I tried to, and what I was trying to say is somebody that could like really lose their job, be cut, be traded, kind of like Mason Rudolph or somebody of that nature. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I was going with that. Like if you go to the wide receivers, for example, like Deontay Johnson is not a hot seat candidate in my opinion, because I think he gets paid regardless if he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers next year or not. This isn't a situation where he just goes out and is floundering in free agency. Whereas I think Chase Claypool has to look over his own shoulder here at George Pickens and not become the next James Washington who struggles to get PT on the field.
Yeah, I think Chase has got, if he had any worse of a sophomore slump, he would already be off the team. But I think, he's got the hottest seat in the wide receiver room, in my view. And it's not because he's in danger necessarily of getting cut, but he's in danger of being forgotten. And that is as good as a death sentence once you get past that. Now, it doesn't mean he can't, take a 1-year deal if he doesn't get re-signed here and resurrect his career someplace else. But man, it puts a lot more pressure on him to do something if he has a, forgettable season this year.
Yeah, and you know what? His numbers really are about the same. Same amount of receptions both years, same amount of yards, 600 is almost flirting with 700. It's good, like wide receiver 2 numbers. His touchdowns were down from 10 to 4. So, I mean, I don't really find it much of a sophomore slump. You got 2 other rookies in the wide receiver room. I'm not going to say that Gunnar Olszewski's on a hot seat, but Claypool, most certainly, he falls out here year 3 of his rookie contract, and then next year he could be in a doghouse playing, watching from the sidelines if he doesn't perform. But I think he has to a certain degree. I just think that there's such a level of expectation with Steelers wide receivers. And I can't necessarily say the quarterbacking has been all that great either when you're talking about Deontay Johnson. With a lot of people are on Deontay Johnson about drops, even though last year really wasn't much of an issue or much of a concern in that category either.
Here's the thing about Claypool. It's not just that the performance wasn't there. It was because you're right. His numbers are about equal. It's that when the performance disappeared, he just vanished too often in games. And he made dumb mistakes that were, just not acceptable. Deontay did a fantastic job of getting better with the drops, and then all of a sudden got cases of the dropsies at very inopportune times late in the season. But it wasn't like he was dropping the ball all year long last year at all.
No, not at all. And actually, here's Claypool's numbers. I was pulling up 62 for 873 and 9 touchdowns, 59 for 860. Just 3 fewer receptions, 13 fewer yards. Actually, more yards per reception last season by a half yard each, but only the 2 touchdowns. I thought he had 4. I was giving him a little more credit than where it was due. So yeah, that a little bit of a problem there. I still think, and not that quarterbacking is necessarily going to be a shoe-in to be better this year, but you got to hope maybe somebody could stretch the field. Maybe. Ben Roethlisberger, 39, 40-year-old Ben Roethlisberger wasn't necessarily the cannon of the arm that made Sammy Coates a superstar there. Brian, what are we looking at now, my friend? You're changing backgrounds. Yeah, that's an old photo of you, though, man. That's dropped 100 pounds since then. That's the Bumblebee jersey.
Let me see if I can get my head in the exact right spot.
It's almost like she's there with you.
Yeah.
But yes, so it almost covers the offense. I don't think there's any tight ends that we need to put on the hot seat. Zach Gentry, I'd like to extend Zach Gentry. Let's make him like the next Matt Spaeth. And
I don't think you have a tight end issue right now. Ebron's gone, and if he wasn't gone, he would have been the only one that potentially could have been. So there really isn't, because you don't expect. Freiermuth's not on the hot seat. He had a tremendous year, and the remainder of the tight end positions they're journeymen.
Yeah,
they're not on the hot seat.
Offensive line, though. And well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of guys, right? Let's start with we'll probably be bringing this up later next week with Flash, because Pro Football Fantasy or whatever. Now we're back to not liking them because of, oh man, just some really bad grades on some players. But
when did we like them?
Well, we liked them like a week ago when we were going through, and they really liked Levi Wallace or Ahkello Witherspoon or both. Or now they don't like. Now they're back off the train.
But, you guys are too fickle.
No, they're fickle. I'll tell you what. I think they intentionally do this stuff. Like TJ Watt is not like a 90. Correct me, someone out there in the internet land if I'm wrong, but 90 and above or 91 and above is a elite grade with Pro Football Focus. And they had Cam Hayward at like a 90 point something or 91, but they failed to put TJ Watt at a 90. They had him at like 89 something. And I'm like, come on, you're just trolling. And of course they have Minka at like a 55 or something. It's just like absolutely ridiculous. Actually, maybe it was like 65, but the worst rated dude on the team easily was Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle. And entering year 2, we saw some of the hiccups last season. We saw where people just reached straight through him and grabbed Ben Roethlisberger. I think he could be on the hot seat, but there's nobody that contend or really challenge him right now, unless it's like Joe Haig. Jukes Okorafor, I think, could be a hot seat candidate too at the other tackle position, because his contract is like, hey, we cut you after this year. We really don't owe you any of the big money that's coming up later in that contract. But if you play up to it, then you're going to get what you probably may have deserved in free agency. Believe it or not, one of the only, I don't want to say big names, but there weren't big names when it came to like right tackle in free agency. So as far as the tackles, that's where I feel Kevin Dotson, I think he's at risk. He could lose his job. We'll see what Kendrick Green does. Kendrick Green, he'll be around, at least in a reserve role. I don't think they outright cut him. He's a second-year player. Mason Cole, James Daniels, I think they bring them on, and those are dudes that are going to be around for a little bit longer when you're looking at it from that perspective. So that's what I feel as far as the hot seat. Dan Moore is probably in the hottest seat, because then next year, maybe even depending on any kind of cuts, if he's not very good in camp or in the preseason, I mean, do they risk it though? I think you got to have the same 5 guys working throughout this process in the summer here, or else you're going to have a lot of the same problems as next year. But if it doesn't work out this year, there's going to be some more changes coming.
There's a real good chance if Kevin Dotson comes in out of shape the way he did last year, that his ass is gone. There's a chance. Because I don't think Tomlin's going to put up with that 2 years in a row. Dan Moore, I mean, as we're saying, what is he? Second-year player. I don't think they're going to give up on the guy that quickly. With Dotson being in the 3rd year and last year showing up out of shape, if he does it again, that starts to be a trend, and then they're going to question some stuff. But I'm going to tell you, I don't, unless something like that happens, I actually don't think any of these guys are really on the hot seat for this year. They may be on the hot seat for the end of the season to be gone, but they're not on the hot seat, I don't think, of in danger of being cut or released mid-season. And it's for that very reason that you talked about. First of all, there's a scarcity in trying to find guys to replace them. And they're certainly not going to want to go down to the depths that they went through last season, where, they had, the 5th place left guard playing at one point. These guys need to gel. They need to play together. That's how an offensive line gets better. You start to trust the guys next to you. You start to anticipate what they're going to do. You know what their strengths are. You know what their weaknesses are. You know how to handle the situations, and you just gel as a unit. So, if they start monkeying with it right away, that's just not a good sign. And it would be a telltale sign for a rough season.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's about all I got for the offense, man. So basically, we're just talking quarterbacks, and pretty much anyone other than Kenny Pickett. I mean, even Ola Adokin, for example.
Well, come on, 4th round or 9th round or 87th round draft pick, whatever the hell he was.
Well, I mean, my point is with that is there's always going to be pressure on him regardless. So the pressure's there. It's a proverbial always a hot seat when you're coming in as basically the QB4 and potential camp arm. So it's pretty much anyone but Pickett is going to be even Pickett will be scrutinized. But what I'm trying to say is Pickett ain't going anywhere. I don't think the Steelers move on from him like a Sam Darnold in the Jets type of situation, where in 2-3 years he's traded and out of town, or even the Cleveland Browns. And I made it funny. Just saying the Cleveland Browns is kind of a joke in and of itself these days. But yeah, aside from him, who else on the offense? Really, just Chase Claypool. Really, Deontay create his own hot seat. It's not like Deontay's underperformed and won't get paid. It's like, but Dupree needed to show that he can have some sort of consistency. I think just most of the whenever somebody's talking about consistency with Johnson, it's in their own mind. They're kind of making it up as they go. It's manufactured more than anything. Now, when you get to the defense, I've got a few extra names here, maybe a few more than usual that we'll have. And let's talk about the guy I'm wearing on my back right now. Devin Bush, number 55. He's probably the one that will be most scrutinized. He's in the final year of his rookie contract. He did not have a 5th-year option picked up, much like Terrell Edmonds the year before. And coming back off of this really kind of bad knee injury where Bush was he was playing exactly where everybody wanted him to be. This top 10 overall pick, the Steelers moved up to grab him and all that jazz. And then it just kind of was underwhelming last year. And we were trying to figure out if that was because of the revolving door at defensive line and a lack of push and effort there as the season wore on. Maybe the offense 3 and out, leaving these guys to just be tired. Was it Joe Schobert? Was there all these other things? But obviously you got to point at, and Pro Football Focus did not do any favors for not only Devin Bush, but also Miles Jack. I'm not sure if you saw that, but I could try and dig up the ratings and see where that was. I don't want to completely steal Flash's thunder here, but they rank both of these guys in like the 30s, like under 40. They don't even believe that they're NFL capable starters with those type of rankings. So while on the offensive side of the ball, and I was wrong, Dan Moore Jr. was like 57.5, but he was the lowest of everyone, which was not necessarily surprising. But when you look at the defense, they did not like the inside linebackers, especially like Miles Jack. I'm just kind of like, okay, that just seems a little out of place. But Jack isn't on any hot seat, I don't think, unless he plays like Schobert did last year. It's going to be all on Devin Bush.
Yeah. Look, Devin Bush comes into the season on the hot seat. No question about it. They have freely admitted that he did not recover from the knee injury as quickly or as efficiently as they had hoped, and that he was still dealing with the legacy of that injury during the season. The question is, and I think it's an open-ended question, and nobody knows the answer yet as to if he will ever be the Devin Bush that he was before. And what does that end up meaning? So, it is, if there is a guy on this team whose butt is literally burning, it's Devin Bush.
Probably the highest with the hottest seat before we even started recording the show. And Claypool's there just by saying he thinks he could be a top 5 or top 3 receiver or whatever, opening his mouth. And he gets some of the TikTok flack that carries over from Juju and stuff like that. I totally get it. Some folks are going to say whatever with the outside linebackers. I don't. Alex Highsmith. Who cares if there isn't depth behind TJ Watt and Highsmith? They're not. There's no hot seat for Highsmith. There's no hot seat on the defensive line as far as Cam Hayward. Facing Lou, he's up there in age. This could be his last season with the Steelers, or maybe even as a member in the NFL. I mean, that's completely.
Yeah, it's
reasonable.
not. I don't think it's hot seat. Yeah, no, it's just age.
Yeah, but I do have one on the defensive line that I think is maybe a hot seat candidate. And the only reason is because of the moves the Steelers have made this offseason. And do they have the confidence? It's the same thing that like we talk about like with when I'm talking about Mason Rudolph. It's like, well, they pick up all these other quarterbacks, so they don't have any faith in Mason Rudolph. They have faith in Chris Wormley, however. Chris Wormley was kind of the default starter after Stephon Tuitt didn't end up playing last season. And it seems to me like with drafting DeMarvin Leal and finding out that Tuitt retires and now bringing in Larry Ogunjobi, that they don't have maybe the most confidence in Wormley, and Wormley is in a contract season as well. Will Wormley come back and just be kind of a reserve role guy? Will he be kind of like in flex as was always Vince Williams as the inside linebacker position? That's going to be determined. But I think Wormley now is fighting for playing time and his roster spot as well, unless he ends up having to kick over maybe and plays more of a nose in place of a now 35-year-old Tyson Alualu.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, again, it's hard to say that a backup guy who got forced into a starting role last year is on the hot seat, right? I think, backup guys tend to have a lifespan, and it's not usually 6-7 years. They come in, they are adequate, they fill in correctly and adequately, and they do their jobs for 2, 3, 4 seasons, and that's usually about it. You don't see a lot of big second Tyson Alualu, and I mean, I'm big relatively speaking here in contract terms. But, Tyson Alualu is a rarity in the sense of a guy who came in to be a backup as depth and got a second contract because he played really well, better than I think any of us really expected him to. And Wormley has had moments where he played well. He's also had moments where he got washed away and didn't have any impact. So, if they get the kind of production that they expect to get out of the other guys, it's very clear to me Chris Wormley goes back to being a backup. And if he's going back to being a backup, how old is he going to be next year when this contract expires?
You know what? I got to look that up. Let's see. How old is Chris Wormley? Right now he's 28. He's very close to my birthday. He'll be 29 late October. So that's a very valid point. So he's approaching 30s.
Yeah.
Approaching defensive 30. Lineman, though, this could be, his entering prime. You know what I mean? Cam Hayward just continues to get better with age. Brett Kiesel got better every single year.
Cam's
so
a grown-ass man.
Yeah, but it's not to say
Cam's a grown-ass man.
Not to say Chris Wormley could be, though, man.
No.
No.
Now you're talking apples and oranges, man. No, it's not the same.
Not yet, though. But do you remember that once upon a time, people thought that Cam Hayward was a first-round bust also. Because he just didn't get on the field. Crack. Well, and they weren't Buckeyes fans, so that makes a lot of sense. But smoking crack. That's like your answer to everything. I don't know. Brian's location not yet fully disclosed. Maybe they smoke crack in the streets there. I don't know. Although that happens in other spots in the United States anyways. But secondary, I don't really have anybody on the hot seat because Terrell Edmonds was brought back on a real cheap 1-year deal. I don't know that that's necessarily something that's hot. You're not going to be surprised if he's not here the following year or if his playing time is cut. You know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily, to me, signify any type of heat or smoke or sizzle or anything of that nature. Minka just got the big contract, so
Minka's not. Cam Sutton may have a warm tuchus.
I don't know about that.
Not one on fire.
I think his role is going to change maybe to be even more slot corner this year, where they brought Levi Wallace on. And we don't necessarily know if Wallace and or Ahkello Witherspoon are answers as starting boundary corners. So that's where Sutton may still fill in if one of those guys slides. And then you have like Arthur Millette, for example, that could play the nickel corner role, perhaps. One that, like I was saying, I was trying not to say this about like necessarily rookies, so to speak, or people still on rookie contracts, but I think the ship has sailed already for James Pierre, and we might as well throw Justin Lane, number 31, out there as well. I don't think he's developed in the way that the Steelers would have hoped, and he may just be on the roster to help fill a depth chart spot unless they find something else or someone else, or maybe somebody comes in like much like well, let's say like Mike Hilton did, or even James Pierre did, the camp phenom type thing, and bumps him off the roster. So as far as secondary goes, I don't really have anybody that's like super hot. We don't have like a Devin Bush type of, we don't even have like a Chase Claypool type of situation with the DBs. And I caught you right there catching another one of those. Yeah, one of those glass bottle waters, man. Sorry. Trying to segue right there to make it easy on you.
Oh, good. No, you're absolutely right. Secondary is pretty well set, and I don't think anybody is looking over their shoulder and really worried. Not now.
I agree. Long snapper or anybody on the special teams, Presley Harvin, the BFP, the big fat punter.
Big fat punter might have a warm, but
depends on who they bring to camp to compete with them. I think we got one more.
Yeah.
Coaching staff wise, most people, they're going to jump in the comments, fire Mike Tomlin, fire, you can't fire the GM. GM's brand new. So I think he'll be in here for a little bit of the long haul. But the guy that we need to put maybe a spotlight on, was it a 3-year contract? It's usually 3-year contracts when you're dealing with offensive coordinators. But Matt Canada, I think if there's a monumental flop with the offense this season, they could move on very fast, because there's a short window here of, again, Mitchell Trubisky, 2-year contract, Kenny Pickett entering year 2 of a 4-year rookie deal with a potential 5th-year option. Mason Rudolph probably out the door if he doesn't surprise and turn heads. He's only here for one more season under contract for a 1-year. I don't even know if it's a prove-it deal, unless he's just a backup. You know what I mean? Could just be in a backup role. But if any of that doesn't work, if any of the rookie wide receivers don't really cut their teeth this year, if Najee Harris regresses, going to be a lot of heat on Matt Canada, maybe more so. The only guy, I would say it's going to become nuclear if the Steelers offense is like worse than it was last year.
There's a slew of offensive coaches that could be finding themselves in trouble, even though they're new. I mean, if the offensive line doesn't improve, then, if they regress even, then the offensive line coach is fairly new, right? Was he new last year or new this year?
New this year. Pat Meyer coming over from previous experience with the Carolina Panthers. Right. Frisman Jackson, wide receivers coach, brand new. I mean, that didn't take long for Ike Hilliard. See you later.
Yeah.
So long. Sayonara.
If they
Eddie
don't
Faulkner
see consistency and improvement in all these positions, because, as you said, the window is not open for a lengthy amount of time, and your defense, while it is still potentially a great defense, has some key components that are now aging. It has key components that have shown a tendency to get injured, or have nagging injuries that can go on through the season. So you do have a short window, and I do think they'd be reactive to that. So I think, Matt Canada definitely I would put as a guy who, may feel some warmth in the tuchus. But I don't think there's an offensive coach that isn't going to necessarily be in that position if the offense as a whole goes down the drain.
Well, you've seen a lot of changeover. Randy Fichtner. I mean, Faulkner's still there. You no longer have, what's his name? Sean Surratt. You don't have Ike Hilliard. I know there was the whole thing with, I feel bad for just Daryl Drake had passed away. Yeah. So they had, what was it? Ray Sherman, who was there in camp, and he just kind of stuck around for a year so they could find someone else. Quarterbacks coach, obviously Fichtner was promoted. They didn't have anyone. Mike Sullivan's there. You have David Corley as an assistant for him as well. So there's a lot of different things here. Alfredo Roberts came on last year as a tight ends coach. So there's been a lot of change over the last 2-3 years in regard to the Steelers and their composition, not only on the offensive side of the ball with offensive line, running back, tight end, quarterback, like just about everything has been an overhaul. But on the defensive side, Terrell Austin takes over for Keith Butler this year. And then you have Brian Flores coming in as a linebackers coach. You have Grady Brown in the secondary. So you don't have multiple defensive backs coaches anymore, Brian. And it's a very very scarce defensive staff here. You have 5 assistants underneath Terrell Austin. And that's probably because Mike Tomlin has a pretty large role, as we're starting to learn as the years kind of wear on with the Steelers. So they have Flores is listed here as a senior defensive assistant / linebackers, Grady Brown secondary. Carl Dunbar, who's done an excellent job, I believe, with the defensive line. Jerry Osavsky's been around as an inside linebackers coach. And then there's an assistant outside linebackers coach with Denzel Martin. So either Brian Flores is wearing a lot of hats right now that existed with other people because, yeah, exactly it.
Did you happen to watch Tomlin on Ryan Clark and whoever that other guy was?
The Pivot podcast. I saw bits and pieces of it. I didn't get.
You should watch it. I mean, it's 90 minutes long, but it's worth the watch. Tomlin is pretty candid, much more so than you would expect in some ways, and you can read much more into some of his answers. I think Brian Flores is going to play a large role.
Well,
that's just the way I see it.
We had said that though for some time. He was hired because of that whole Miami Dolphins zero blitz scheme that just totally eradicated and shut down the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens are out there adding more tight ends, not wide receivers. And what do you think they're going to do? They're trying to do the same exact thing that they did, and then you got the counter reaction there. That every team, it's an arms race. It's always an arms race. So who are we trying to kid? And you never know. There's always been talk about how much longer would Tomlin do this. He was hired as a young man for the long haul, and I don't see his fire burning out anytime soon. I don't think anybody would move on from him whatsoever. But if you're Brian Flores, and I know he had his issues and he has, lawsuits and stuff with different off-field things happening in the league, but you can't deny some of the job that he did with the Miami Dolphins and at other times as an assistant coach around the league. He's certainly experienced. All of the players are talking him up. Kind of maybe wants to put this in the rear view, perhaps. But when you get guys that come like this, they come to the Steelers, they want to work with Mike Tomlin, they want to be with this stable organization. He could be around for many years to come. And it's been mentioned, maybe he's a successor at some point. I mean, Terrell Austin had been a defensive coordinator and took just a regular defensive backs. There were 2 defensive backs coaches, and he takes that sort of role and now kind of moves up the promotion within. Matt Canada, even as a quarterbacks coach, hey, there might be an offensive coordinator position that ends up opening. So I don't have, they'll give Austin some time. I think they already believe in him to some degree. Flores, though, got to look over his shoulder at him. He could easily ascend into being a defensive coordinator, and Terrell Austin's been around for a while too. You never know if somebody ever wants to just retire and hang up the proverbial cleats from coaching. But definitely the hottest seats. Would we do like 3 of them? I think if you had to go top 3, we'll see if you agree or disagree or agree to disagree with me here. But it's most likely, let me see here. In no particular order, Devin Bush, Matt Canada, and probably Chase Claypool.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Sounds good, my friend. Well,
and then Mason Rudolph.
if he's still hanging around, man. I mean, look at you, devil. You devil, you. You're rotten. It's why I didn't wear the Rudolph jersey. It's like I got to find some excuses though to get some use out of some of these, because this might be the last year for this Devin Bush jersey. And I've got a color rush one too, because I invest in the rookies now, so I get some use out of these things. And it's just I got to find some reasoning and hope. I do though, in all of these cases, even for the ones that I say that are on the hot seat. Of everyone, Matt Canada's probably got the hottest, probably the shortest. I don't think these Steelers make these kind of moves in season though. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Devin Bush is the hottest hot seat.
You think he's the hottest hot seat, but he's not somebody that's getting fired. He's not somebody that's getting cut. He's just going to lose his job. He could get benched for Spilly, you think? Benched. Or maybe Buddy Johnson comes up, Gilbert.
I mean, if he's not, that is the issue, is who do you replace him with, right? But if they have to make a move because he's just not the guy they need him to be, then they will.
I hear you. Well, hey, we got through this. Apologies for any of the little bit of clipping or whatever from the other side of the world, but the people had spoken. They said, "Where's Brian E. Roach?" And the person
Did they
commenting,
really?
yeah, they really did. And I had to tell the guy that commented, assuming Guy Garrel, whatever, bot, and I had to say he was on the show yesterday.
Touch my heart. They touch my soul. You touch me now. Now I'm going to go and be all emotional in Vienna.
Don't go singing out your window there, pal.
Not gonna. Don't worry. I'm not going to be emotional in Vienna.
Well, folks, that'll do it for us here. We've got some technical changes going around here too. So if you like the format, great. Just keep an eye if you're listening to the show on any of the audio versions or platforms that we're on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, things of that nature. We found out that we actually have a duplicate, I think, of Spotify out there. So you may have to resubscribe. So take a look, make sure that all of that's up to date. If you end up losing us for any particular reason, at least the 2%ers will know, Brian. Yep. Everybody else is going to be like, what the heck happened? But just trying to throw that out there. We're trying to clean up some things here and, trying to push in. We're doing it during the off season, during the slow portion of the season. So here in June is when we try to make those moves. We don't want to have that happen in September and then all of you end up missing. That's just not acceptable. They will miss you, Brian. They've let you know. They've let us know that the people have spoken. So,
well, that's very kind.
Very heartfelt, very heartfelt. So his name is Brian E. Roach. My name's Joe Kuzma. Thank you, everyone out there, for watching or listening wherever you may be. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.